This is News Talk 95.1 FM, 790 AM KFYO. I'm Matt Martin. We got Dave King, and we also have Chief of Police of Lubbock, Texas, Floyd Mitchell on the line. Chief Mitchell, how are things going?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I think I'm doing well. The whole world has kind of gone crazy, but in my own little space, everything seems to be going fine.
Well, good morning, Chief. Dave King here. Can you hear me?
Good morning, Dave. How are you, sir?
Well, I'm doing good. Gosh, we've got so much to talk about. And, you know, we talked about yesterday on the show, we got a tremendous amount of response from the story about the police officer that I guess has been put on a administrative leave. Is that the proper way to say it?
Yes, sir. And Dave, I can just barely hear you, sir.
So what is that officer's status today?
He is still on administrative leave.
Okay. I guess there's an investigation going on. What exactly is the investigation looking at? Is it looking at past posts, or is it looking at the legal thing about this particular post? What are they investigating?
We're looking at in regards to any potential policy violations in regards to our officers' use of social media.
Okay. What does the I guess Lubbock Police Department have social media guidelines itself, or does it go by the city guidelines?
The police department has guidelines as well as the city of Lubbock, and our members on the police department fall under the policies and procedures of both.
So what are the guidelines for social media in Lubbock?
Oh, I'd have to pull out the policy for you to read those to you. I didn't know you were going to ask me that.
Okay, that's fine. Is this something that I guess Officer Spann could potentially be fired in this situation?
There's a disciplinary process that he will have to go through. And that depends on how the investigation turns out. So if there are policy violations, those policy violations will be written up and they will be presented to him, and he will have the opportunity to respond to those policy violations, provide any information that he thinks is mitigating those potential policy violations. And based on that, his chain of command will make a recommendation to me, and I can either agree with those recommendations or disagree.
So,
Hey, Chief, hey, Matt, let me get this question in real quick, because it wasn't clear from the stories that were reported, Chief. What exactly were the words in his post that were offensive? What were the words that became the issue?
What became the issue is he referred to the protesters in his post as trash and East Side rabble, and our social media policy prohibits us from using disparaging remarks with anyone we come into contact with.
Okay. Is this the first time that y'all have had an issue with social media in Lubbock? And do you think that he put the police department in a safety issue? Do you think this was a safety issue as far as the police department?
In regards to this particular officer, his prior disciplinary record will be part of my review when I get this investigation. So I will look at any potential violations that he's had prior to this. One of the things that really concerned me regarding these posts is, one, there's the disparaging remarks regarding members of our community that were exercising their right to protest. Also, the remarks in regards to identifying people from the east side of our community as rabble or trash. The other piece that does, given the current environment of the United States and what's going on in policing, or it has to do with George Floyd and people that are protesting, rioting. Our role is to de-escalate as best as possible, and in that we have to make sure that we don't use inflammatory language to escalate what's going on in Lubbock. We're trying hard to work with all facets of our community, give them the opportunity to safely protest their views and what happened in Minneapolis with George Floyd. And so far we have had extremely peaceful protests in the city of Lubbock.
Yeah, and I think that the citizens of Lubbock have been very tempered on that. I think that that goes to the citizens of Lubbock as well as the police department. I think overall everything's gone very well in Lubbock.
Yes, I would say so too. We have several other protests planned for this weekend, and we're hoping that we can continue to have peaceful protests.
So, Chief, I do have a question as far as the Floyd incident, the George Floyd incident that happened. One of the big things that across, I guess, the United States that they've put emphasis on is the fact that chokeholds and other things that on the neck. Does Lubbock allow any type of chokehold to be done from the police officers?
No, we don't. Our policy does not allow for that.
Okay. And so are there any policy changes that you've seen that can be done now that all this is going on, and especially you being new? Have you found any policy changes that could potentially make Lubbock, those being arrested, safer?
Well, we review all policy and procedures on a yearly basis, and there are several that we really pay attention to: our use of force, our pursuit policies, and things of that nature. In looking at our policy, there are situations that we come in contact with as police officers. When we're called there, it's usually something has gone wrong, and we have to intervene in some way. So we have policies on when the use of force is authorized, and how to immediately de-escalate after that force is used. So I think it's important for your listeners to understand that, we have a use of force policy because when we come into contact with violent offenders or offenders, we have to also protect ourselves. So that's an important piece of it. So looking at our policies, right now there are no immediate changes that need to be made to it.
Okay. How has the COVID-19 changed the way that y'all have to do things?
It is, when it first kicked off in March, our business, just like all other businesses throughout the city of Lubbock and the nation, had to take specific precautions. We did send a lot of our non-essential staff home, and most of those were our civilian staff and several of our detectives, and they work remotely from their homes, handling cases, handling calls. But we wanted to do the social distancing just like everyone else. After the governor's phase one of the COVID, we brought those folks back. So all of our folks are back in the office at this point in time. We're still taking those precautions in regards to when people come into the station. We take their temperature. We require them to wear a mask. Visitors that aren't members or are employees of the police department, we require them to do that. So we're taking the same precautions as everyone else is.
Okay, Chief.
Let's see what let's do.
Dave, we got to take.
Why don't we take a break real quick here and then come back and get the chief to respond to some of the text messages that we have, and maybe one about the policy, Lubbock's policy about citizens protecting their businesses and what extent they can go to do so.
All right. Like Dave said, we do have to take a break. We'll be right back with Chief of Police Mitchell on News Talk 95.1 FM, 790 AM, KFYO. This is News Talk 95.1 FM, 790 AM, KFYO, and we have currently have the Chief of Police, Floyd Mitchell of Lubbock, on the line. And Chief, we did have a few questions about this, and that was, how does the police department handle enforcing COVID-19 guidelines and also allowing peaceful protests at the same time?
Well, the governor has actually made some, in his latest phases, public gathering, there's not much we can do in regards to enforce. There's no enforcement action of that at this point in time.
Okay. And so, what about the police department? Is there anything that y'all have to do differently as far as, I mean, do you have to keep 6 foot away from the protesters? How do you deal with that?
We take as best precautions as we can. Like I said, we had a large march a couple of days ago here, and most of the folks that showed up had on masks. There were people with hand sanitizer out there as well. Our officers, again, they have PPE or personal protection equipment that they use, and we try to desanitize as best as possible.
Well, Chief, we did have one of our texters wants to know the position, I guess, of the police, or what are the rules about individuals protecting their home and their business.
Yes, sir.
I can't hear Dave.
Okay. All right. All right. I apologize. So, how exactly do you feel like the police department is in any type of danger from the protests that we've had so far?
I believe, yes, I do believe our police department is, and I believe our city is, and that's why I'm trying to do, and my staff is trying to do the best they can to, one, provide a venue for those that want to protest to do that and do that safely, and also, protect the rights of our property owners and the other citizens of our community.
We have someone that wants to know your thoughts on citizens protecting their own businesses in regards to business owners carrying guns. As far as the fact that the police can't be everywhere is what they actually stated.
Well, I would say what's most important is if one, we're not in a situation where our business owners are have to worry about protesters or rioting. If we do get into a situation to where we have some folks that want to start causing damage, one, we're going to respond. And I would have your caller say, call the police first. And like I said, we are monitoring these protests. We have officers monitoring them each and every day. So my position would be, call us first and let us see if we can handle the situation.
Now, there haven't been any protests that y'all didn't know. I mean, in other words, there hasn't been just a group just come out and start rioting, or a group just come out and start protesting without making people aware it's going to happen so far in Lubbock, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So as far as I can tell, in Lubbock, we haven't really had the kind of problems that you're seeing across the nation.
No, when we were monitoring different social media sites, and when someone indicates that they're going to have a protest or want to have a protest, we are proactively reaching out to those organizers and one, sitting down with them when we can, and advising them of, hey, this is what you can do and this is what you can't do, and we'll support you as best as we possibly can to keep you safe.
So one question I've seen on here, I'm not going to ask it the way they're asking it, but what they want to know is if the social media policy goes across all people, as well as if it covers, if the social media policy is going to cover political speech. In other words, if somebody is talking about Donald Trump or talking bad about one of the politicians, could that also be against the social media policy?
Well, we're going to look at each individual concern that is brought to our attention on its basis. I think probably what your reader is talking about is, are we infringing on someone's right of free speech? And I would say no. Our officers are given the access to the policies and procedures. They're required to read them, and they're required to follow them. So part of the investigation is to look at what was said, how it affects our community, and how it affects our operation. And if there are policy violations or violations of our policies, just like there, all businesses have rules and regulations for their employees.
Yeah.
If if there is a violation, then the appropriate action will be taken.
So I am going to kind of switch gears here, just because there's a few things that I've personally been wondering about, and the one is, I know that y'all had an initiative to slow Lubbock down. How has that been going?
Well, it is that initiative kind of got sidetracked with COVID-19. Our partners, DPS and the Lubbock County Sheriff's Office, we all had to back away from proactive enforcement early on. We have recommunicated with DPS and the Lubbock County Sheriff's Office and wanted to start those initiatives back up.
Okay. And we only have about 40 seconds. Is there something that you wanted to say or get out there?
I just wanted to say that I do appreciate all of our citizens in Lubbock. I appreciate their cooperation and their ability to protest peacefully. I think that says a lot about who we are as a community, and look forward to working with everyone in the community in the future.
All right, Chief Floyd Mitchell, thank you so much for coming on and speaking with us and our audience.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good day. This is News Talk 95.1 FM, 790 AM KFYO, Mornings with Dave King and Matt Martin. Chad Hasty will be next.